Alright, so as we said, Pachmayr grips, these particular Pachmayr grips are a problem on this gun. Unless you have extremely long fingers, it puts your index finger too far away from the trigger for comfortable double action shooting. It makes the perceived weight of the trigger pull much higher than it actually is, and it makes it much more difficult to control the gun. And as you saw in the range work, it makes me shoot slow and sometimes inaccurately. But luckily that's an easy fix, because all we have to do is change the grips out, and there are any number of grips available. And the ones that I'm going to put on here come from Midway USA, and they're made by Eagle Grips. Get them up here where you can see it. They're walnut, they're checkered, and they do what they need to do. So let's get these grips off of here. I'm using Brownell screwdrivers, and in fact, I'll just zoom out here. I've got a complete set of Brownell's Magnatip gunsmith screwdrivers, and I recommend that if you're going to spend any money on guns, probably the next thing you buy before you buy a second gun is you should buy a complete set of good gunsmith screwdrivers. So we're just going to pull these off, unscrew this grip, and okay, and as you can see, the back is solid, and that space right there is the extra distance that keeps you away from the trigger. So we'll put that aside, and we'll just fit it with the Eagle grips. So we'll just push these in place over the studs. Now you can get these from Midway. They come checkered. They're somewhere in the $55 range. I hate to say a price because some of you might see this months or years after I make it. Right now they're under $60. Oops. Come on, Mike. Alright. So now we'll just screw that baby in, and we'll be good to go. Now, there are lots of other grips around that you could choose instead of these. I like these. Now, they're finger groove, they're nice, but here's what you need to look for. Get grips that have an open back, and you should get grips that are flush with the bottom of the frame. A lot of end frame round butt grips still continue down here. What's the point of that, right? You might as well have a square frame. No good. Okay, so does this make a difference? Yeah, look at how far I can put my finger in. Okay, now if you've ever taken any of the FBI's materials, back when they used revolvers, they actually told their agents go all the way to the first joint, pull straight back, and they taught one-handed shooting. But I'm here to tell you, I have been shooting double action revolvers like that for years, and it absolutely works. Okay, and the pull, perceived pull, obviously the poundage is much the same, perceived pull is much lighter. And you can take it to the next level and get a Wolf spring kit and make the actual pull much lighter. But that's all you need to do. So the gun still looks good. Now these grips have a little bit of a knock on them. If you read the feedback on the Midway site, you'll see that some people get grips that don't fit as well as they should. And as you can see from these grips, they fit perfectly. No gap at the front, nothing is sticking up on the sides. Absolutely excellent, and they're here in 2 days. Right? Who can kick about that? And we'll show you how they do on the range. Well, as we've seen, changing the grip away from that Pachmayr grip to these Eagle grips makes a big difference in the perceived trigger pull, and it gives us a much better grip on the revolver. Right? We can get our finger in and fire it much better. But as long as we've got the screwdrivers out, we can go one step beyond that. And instead of just changing the perceived trigger pull, we can change the actual weight of the trigger pull. And what we need to do that is a Wolf spring kit. And this spring kit includes a new mainspring, which is a reduced power mainspring. I'll just get you a little look at that. And then it contains 3 trigger return springs. A 13-pound, a 14-pound, and a 15-pound trigger return spring. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the lightest one, this 13-pound, and we're going to install that. Now you can also get this kit with a standard power mainspring that is exactly the same as the factory spring. And in order to do this, it's pretty simple. We're going to pull these walnut grips off first. So we'll just unscrew these. And we'll put these aside. Now there's a tension spring that's got to be released right here on the frame. So we'll do that next. As you can see, we've got that screw backed all the way out. So we're good on that. The next step is to remove the cylinder assembly itself. And in order to do that, we've got to remove this first screw here on the frame. So we'll just pull that screw out. You can see it's got a little detent right here, right? And that's what keeps the crane and cylinder assembly in. So now put the cylinder out, and I'm just going to lift it off. Okay, so we got the cylinder out of the gun, which allows us to lay it flat. Now the next thing we want to do is remove this side plate here. So there are 2 screws here that have to come out, and we'll do that next. So we're going to get both of these screws out, and when we do, there we go, we can remove the side plate. And now I can remove the mainspring, right, which I'm going to get out right here, and I can replace it now with this Wolf reduced power mainspring. So I'm just going to slide that on the stirrup. Whoops. Be nice if I can keep the stirrup on here. There we go. And let me get up there and catch it. And there. Okay, so now I'm back on there. And the way to keep that in place is to retighten the screw, and I'm just going to tension that just a little bit. I don't want to tension it all the way yet, but if I tension a little bit, it'll keep that from dropping out. Okay, now the piece we need is right here, which you can see that spring right inside there. That's what we need to take out, and this will just lift off of this pin, and we'll put that spring in. Okay, you can see where the trigger return spring slides right in here. And of course this is what puts the pressure on to kick the trigger back, so you're always pushing against that pressure when you're pulling the trigger in double action mode, and that's why putting in a 13-pound return spring will lighten your trigger pull up immediately, besides putting in the lighter mainspring. So now we just have to get this tensioned in and get it back over that pin. And now I just need to put the plate back on. And we're going to be in business. Okay, now we've closed up the plate, and we just do everything in reverse, right? Alright, and here we are. Alright, we're in good shape. Everything is working. And I have a much lighter trigger pull now. Bang, bang, bang. First chance to come out to the range and shoot the 325 Night Guard revolver since we put the new grips on it, put the spring clip in it. Really looking forward to getting this gun on target. Haven't been able to get out to the range for about 2 weeks because it's been raining for 2 weeks solid. We had a hurricane followed by a tropical storm. We've got about 30 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks. And you're going to hear some traffic noise in the background. I belong to 2 clubs. The one I usually make videos at is up in the hills, but it's got a lot of storm damage right now and I can't get into the bays. So I'm here at my other club. This is the one I usually test guns and loads at. But it's very close to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and that's what you're going to be hearing in the background. But I'm really eager to give this gun a whirl now that we've got the springs and the new grips on it. Alright, the first thing I want to do is just function test it. I want to make sure it's going to consistently set off primers. Whenever you lighten up the springs on a gun, you want to make sure you haven't gone too far, because if it's not going to pop primers consistently, you sure don't want to use it to defend yourself. Alright, let's load it up. Full moon clip in. Love those things. Well, we're shooting on an Evil Roy target system from Action Targets. This is about 15 yards distance, which is really longer distance than you'd probably use this gun for self-defense. Okay, I think that works. I'm not going to demonstrate any single action shooting with the 325. This is a defensive revolver, and it's going to be shot double action, and that's the way I intend to train with it. With the new grips and the new springs, this is a much better shooting revolver for me, and I think I've got it right where I want it. If you have to use a 325 to defend yourself, this should be the last thing a bad guy ever sees.